Well, good afternoon. This is Hound Dog Steve coming to you on the 26th of December, and having a little time myself. It's pretty chilly outside right now, and the wood stove is roaring away, so I thought I'd do a little research. And one of the things that I have been wondering when it's going to basically have some meaningful effect around the world, although it has had quite a lot of meaningful effect to date, and that is the debt situation. And we have reached what I would consider to be maximum evil in the world right now. And I don't say that because we're at war and there is disease, famine and all that kind of stuff. No. What I'm referring to is the fact that every single man, woman and child on this planet, one way or another, is in debt. Okay, whether it be personal debt, whether it is your municipal government, your provincial government, your federal government, your country, it doesn't matter. They're all in debt up to their eyeballs, and this is all growing exponentially, and it's reaching a point where we're going to get the Minsky moment. And the Minsky moment, this is a Russian economist called Hyman Minsky, and he came up with this theory that if you fuel your economy on debt, okay, so you imagine you've got a graph like this, okay, and you're going to fuel your economy in debt, it goes like that. It just takes off. It's a hyperbola. It's an incredible growth line. It's just it rises very quickly and then levels off. However, at the same time, your interest is a parabola. Okay, and it goes like this. It's just a hockey stick. Okay, so it starts off very slowly, so it doesn't interfere with your growth curve. Okay, but these two come together like this, and where they intersect is called the Minsky moment. And we had our first serious Minsky moment in 1972, and that is when we came off the gold standard. This allowed the banks to basically create debt at a faster rate than they've ever been allowed to. That then basically we had a little sort of step back in 2000 with the dot-com bubble bursting, because a lot of that money, that cheap money, that debt had gone into these startup companies, which even the people who worked there didn't know what those companies did as far as integrating themselves into the greater economy. Okay, but the biggie recently was 2008, and so that was our third Minsky moment. Okay, so we've been building on fake money from 1972, 2000 and 2008, one on top of the other to avoid the reconciling of this debt situation. And as I'm going to show you an article from Zero Hedge, as long as a couple of others, that will show that firstly we haven't done anything since 2008, and in many ways the situation will get worse. Okay, so let's pop over to those articles now, and I'll come back and wrap up in a minute. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we go. First story from Zero Hedge. DAS. The world will pay for not dealing with debt. Inventive policymaking has only made the problem worse, guaranteeing that any eventual restructuring will be all the more painful. Markets, to paraphrase Nobel Prize winning economist Thomas Schelling, often forget that they keep forgetting. That's especially true when it comes to the intractable challenges posed by global debt. Since 2008, governments around the world have looked for relatively painless ways to lower high debt levels, a central cause of the last crisis. Cutting interest rates to zero or below made borrowing costs easier to service. Quantitative easing and central banking support made it easier to buy debt. Engineering increases in asset prices raised collateral values, reducing pressure on distressed borrowers and banks. All of these policies, however, avoided the need to deleverage. In fact, they actually increased borrowing, especially demand for risky debt, as income-starved investors looked farther and farther afield for returns. Since 2007, global debt has increased from 167 trillion, excluding financial institutions, to 247 trillion. Total debt levels are 320% of global GDP, an increase of around 40% over the last decade. All forms of borrowing have increased, household, corporate and government. Public debt had to grow dramatically to finance rescue efforts after the Great Recession. US government debt is approaching 22 trillion, up from around 9 trillion a decade ago, an increase of 40% of GDP. Emerging market debt has grown as well. China's non-financial debt has increased 2 trillion in 2000 to 7 trillion in 2007 to around 40 trillion today, 240% of GDP. The Bank for International Settlements statistical release, over-the-counter derivatives statistical at end June 2018. And let's take a little look at this graph here. Okay. Highlights from the latest statistics. The notional value of outstanding over-the-counter derivatives increased from $532 trillion at end 2017 to $595 trillion at the end of June 2018. Okay, so we're talking nearly $600 trillion on top of the $60 trillion in world debt, and on top of the $300 trillion nearly in bank debt, which would include personal debt as well. Here we are. This was in 2011, October 12th, 2011. Derivatives, the $600 trillion time bomb that's set to explode. Do you want to know the real reason banks aren't lending? It's because the risk in the $600 trillion derivatives market isn't evening out. To the contrary, it's growing increasingly concentrated among a few select banks, especially here in the United States. Okay, so this has been going on since 2007. We haven't learned our lessons, and there are only a couple of alternatives that we have to choose from as a way out. One is set the printing presses going, or the other is a debt jubilee. Take your pick. Okay, so you can see that this will at some point unravel, and I think it's starting to unravel now because they really just can't come up with any other more creative way of turning a liability into an asset and then using that as collateral on further debt. So their only option now is to just turn on the printing press, full blast, and get it going and keep it going and hope. This is like having a hole in the side of your ship, that is the size of a two-story house. And those pumps have got to work 24/7 to try and keep the water from flooding in. And you see, the problem is because those debts, those derivatives, have to be reconciled somehow. What this means is that half of those parties are on the downside. And as a friend of mine is fond of reminding me, that people who are owed money have far better memories than people who owe money. And so they're going to demand settlement from people who can't give settlement because all their assets are now spun out in this derivative market. So every asset, there are no more assets actually out there. The only assets you might have are tangible assets that are in your hand, which would be your home, maybe your car if you don't owe any money on it, and the tools that you have in your shed, and your ability to grow food. Those are your assets. Silver, gold, in coin or in ingots, one of the two, because this market. And what's going to happen? What I'm predicting here, this is one of my predictions for 2019, but what I'm predicting here is you're not going to see a crash or a bang or a wallop or anything like that, but very quietly over a weekend you're going to see that the banks will stop lending to each other. And this was the cause of the crisis in 2008. I don't know if you remembered, but it was the ABCP, the asset-backed commercial paper, which caused all the problems. And this is because the banks stopped trusting each other. They started to realize that all of the assets were actually liabilities, and they wouldn't lend to each other. And you can see how it basically just stalled the marketplace. There was huge panic, and that's why we ended up bailing out the banks to give them the liquidity they required to start giving the appearance of reconciliation in the debt market. But we have rigged and jigged this market. We have done just about everything that you can think of, and this debt is going to have to go somewhere. And I've been recommended for years now, and I just happen to have seen this on a Max Kaiser report. Debt Jubilee, the cancelling of all debts, just cancel them. I know this will be a difficult pill for some people to swallow, especially those who were about to get paid out on those debts. But we really don't have a lot of choices here. Either way, it is going to be painful. You either cancel all debts, or you carry on to this point of stalling. And just like a plane stalling in the air, you don't know exactly when the precise moment is going to happen, because all the conditions, you know, the air pressure, the air speed, the wind direction, all this kind of stuff, all have a factor, and so too with the economic markets. Okay, all of the different winds from different directions buffeting the economic market, and not the least of which is the fact that everybody wants to continue on doing what they're doing. You know, it's too hard to think of not using the US dollar. It's still there, it still looks like the dollar, it's still accepted around the world. Why wouldn't you do that? But I'll tell you, when this happens, the minute this happens, you will see that Bitcoin, Litecoin and Ethereum will suddenly get pressed into service, and they will become a serious currency demanded by the people because of the absolute necessity to transact if we want to keep our economy at least moving. I'm not saying afloat, but moving, where you can transact, where you can trade, where commerce can take place. And this will be, of course, a massive turning point in the way we view trade. And I think you'll find when that happens, a lot of these big trade deals will suddenly fall apart. And I think this is why they're scared to death of a hard exit on Brexit, which I believe will happen again in 2019, is because all of a sudden they're going to find out that Britain, out of necessity, needs to purchase things, and they're going to go direct to the country or manufacturer that produces what they need, and they're going to go, hey, you got some coal? Because we could sure use some. How much is that? When can you ship? Okay, the check's on the way. Send it over. Bye. Because that's how, truthfully, deals can still be done. Okay, we've been talked into this nonsense by these large corporations whom these trade deals benefit. But all of us, just like, you know, you can, I bought a cryptocurrency hard wallet from France. I went online, and that's where the manufacturer was. Well, guess what? I used my Visa card. I guess I could easily have used Litecoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin to settle that transaction. But this is the true nature of world trade. It's me being able to go on that computer right now and choose whatever acceptable payment method there is and transact with somebody in another country, and we're both satisfied at the end of the day. They've made a sale, I've made a purchase, I've got what I wanted, they've got what they wanted, and that is truly what trade is all about. And these trade deals, these TPPs and so on and so forth, they distort the trade arena. These low interest rate environments that the banks have created distort the trade arena, because it's a model that suits half of the marketplace and basically knocks the legs out from the other. So there you go. The financial world, like water, will find its own level, and it doesn't care who gets drowned in the process when that water level finds its own level. So thank goodness that we have suddenly got cryptocurrencies actually up and working. We have blockchain platforms actually up and working. So these things are actually ready to go, and I think they're going to find sudden massive acceptance in the not too distant future. Okay, well, if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe below. I'd like to thank all of my subscribers for joining me today, and viewers, of course. And this is a continuing conversation we'll be having, no doubt, because this is a dynamic situation, and it could change very, very quickly. Okay, so this is Hound Dog Steve signing off. You take care, you have a great day, and we will talk to you real soon. See you now. Bye.